Recently, someone asked me about this ability to see people as precious. That caused me to consider, what can we do to reactivate that ability, particularly when we have felt hurt by people we love? That happens, doesn't it? So it takes a process to heal that hurt in ourselves. But if we do that healing deliberately, we can begin to see that person anew, with new eyes, from a place of love and strength in ourselves. We can do that and still be wise. If we really do that healing and begin to see with new eyes, we will also have greater understanding and compassion for the person who hurt us. When I have done that, usually I realize things that I did that also hurt that person. And through that healing process, I find that I love the person more. So when we heal ourselves so that we can genuinely see a person as precious, what impact does that have on that person? Especially if the person knows that that person, in English we'd say they, has done something that hurt us. So I had a life-changing experience of that with my mentor, with Tom, who later became my mentor. So it was the day after my 22nd birthday. That's 48 years ago. Older than most of you in this room. But I said it was a life-changing experience. So I had only met Tom 10 days earlier. But my boyfriend, not Eugen, my boyfriend had been working closely with Tom for about a year. So because of their love for my boyfriend, Tom's wife prepared a wonderful birthday dinner with cake, etc. for me. And after dinner, Tom began to speak of spiritual things as he had done several previous evenings. But this particular evening, even after all their gracious gifts to me for my birthday, I burst out with an emotional reaction. Essentially, I told Tom I didn't believe him. Well, I had just turned 22 and all these things were so new to me. I honestly don't remember how the evening ended. But I will never forget what happened the next morning. They had a small hotel where I was staying with shared bathrooms down a long hallway from the rooms. So when I woke up, I started down the hallway to the bathroom. And then I saw Tom coming toward me. After my very rude reaction the previous evening, the last thing I wanted was to meet Tom. But what could I do? He already saw me. If I turned around and went back to my room, he would know I was avoiding him. So I braced myself for a rebuke, and I just kept walking. But to my surprise, instead of a scowl, he was smiling and beaming with love. That moment changed my life. Suddenly, I knew this is God's love. I had been very skeptical till then because of my history of pain. I had a lot of mistrust, especially of men. But in that moment, I experienced such a largeness of love, so genuine and so full of compassion. It changed my world. For the first time in my life, I realized such love is possible. And I knew this is God's love. So I could no longer deny that Tom knew God because he was giving God's love to me. Yeah. Truly a priceless gift. There is no greater gift. One morning this week, as soon as I woke up, immediately someone I love came into my heart. So I held her in my arms in attunement. And while I was doing that, a realization came to me. We meet the glory when we receive and give God's love. That's when we meet the glory.
네.
Receive and give God's love.
네.
About an hour later, during my tea meditation, I remembered how many times this person has been a channel of God's love for Eugen and me. So it would be totally natural for me to be a channel of God's love to her. Perhaps heaven knew she was having some challenges, and that's why heaven nudged me to send her love at that moment. A little later that morning, I wrote to her.
네.
So isn't that how it's meant to work? The warmth of God's love flowing between us, reciprocating back and forth in harmony with the cycles of our lives. We run to meet the glory. When our hearts vibrate at a high enough level that we can feel God's love, whether it's sending a message of love to someone, or feeling grateful for the sun rising and the sunbeams kissing everything in the valley, or a gift of soup made with love to help us recover when we're sick. In countless unique ways, God's love comes to us and through us. As Eugen said, it so wants to run to us as we open our heart and run to meet it. The veil that prevents us from feeling this already present glory is the heart that has closed to the sweeter things of life, closed to what actually uplifts our heart. When we judge or manipulate, even for the best of reasons, simultaneously that closes our heart. We've all done that to some degree. But is it worth it? Maybe now we can see and feel that judgment and manipulation are not worth it because we've begun to touch the glory of love that is possible and is present. It eagerly wants to welcome us into the reality of love that transforms us and our world. So when we see these two choices clearly, judging and manipulation, or touching the already present glory of God's love, who would not choose the already present glory of God's love? I hope this can help us do that more in the days ahead. Every morning, part of my meditation is this question: what is moving in heaven in the creative process? For many months, the answer that I have felt is massive purification. But since Eugen's service last Sunday, what's come in answer is different. Glory. Right in the midst of the massive purification, see the glory. That is the ability that I sense will be very, very important in the days ahead. 22 years ago, some words came to me from heaven that relate to this ability to see the glory, even in the midst of massive purification that brings despair. So I'm just going to read a few lines from that. Look not to outer appearances for evidence of progress. For what must move in this culminating cycle is so monumental. The human eye will be blinded with despair. Use your inner eye, for I am here with you closer than breathing, and my love will transform you and all that you see. Open your eyes to see all that is before you, but see that which resounds my being and magnify it with all that you are. We run to meet the glory when we see that which resounds my being, when we receive and give God's love. So even in difficult situations, let's look for the glory. It's there, waiting for us. Let's open our hearts to meet it and magnify it with all that we are. Let's run to meet the glory.